What I found for myself is that for most of my life, I could be in rooms full of people, surrounded by people, but feel completely alone, right? And now I've gotten to a place where I can feel completely alone, yet I never feel lonely.
And my mentor looked at me and he said, I went around and asked people who is Mark Stern. He said 50% of them say you're the box guy. The others say you are the virtual event guy. So you're confusing people. You're 100% nothing. I remember early on when I transitioned to entrepreneurship that someone told me like, here's who I am off stage, but here's who I am on stage. And it was like these two different personas. And I'm just sitting there going like, they're giving the room permission to create these alter egos and these different identities. I want you to know that when you meet me virtually in this capacity or in person, I'm going to be the same person. I'm not going to show up different. As a child who grew up in the 80s and early 90s, like Super Mario Brothers 3 for original Nintendo has inspired my business in so many different ways.
All right. Welcome back, everybody, to Flipping the Lid. You know what we do here by now, but we just continue to be honored with just incredible human beings who are willing to not only have the real conversations, but to demonstrate that their path to success is not always pretty, but at the same time, there's often great things on the other side of difficult moments. Today, we've got a really incredible individual with us today that I had the chance to interview on my other show. And, you know, I'm going to go less down the details of everything that he does, but he is the founder of Custom Box Agency. And I have to tell you that he understands relationships, customer journeys, and experiences at a level that many can't even fathom. And it was brilliant to have a conversation with him because he understands the intricacies of the human experience at a pretty high level, but he's also somebody who's pushed himself, who's done a whole variety of things and is a multiple time Spartan trifecta, as well as a whole variety of other things that I'm sure we will get into. But he's also a man and just an incredible human who is leading in his own ways. So Mark, dude, I'm looking forward to jumping in with you today, brother.
Brian, thrilled to be here. I'm excited for this.
Well, the only question I ask every single guest is right after I do my intro. And it's like, look, I gave a high level intro about who I think you to be and how incredible I think you are. But who are you in your words, brother?
Yeah, I would say in my own words, I grew up in Alabama and I was told that there's one natural way to live a fulfilling life. And that's you graduate high school, go to college, graduate college, do the job. After working, you go to grad school, and then afterwards it's, life picket fences. And so I used to joke and say I was the poster child of that. Like I thought that corporate America was the way to go. I'm someone who doesn't play soft. I go all in anything I do. And so I had one job before business school and one job after. And then you get to 2012, I got my MBA at Duke and walked out with $165,000 of student loan debt and realizing that this cannot be what life is all about. I didn't work this hard to get to here. And at the time I was at a contract with a consulting firm called Deloitte, where my entire life, if you work for a big consulting firm, literally 4:45 every Monday, you're picked up, taken to the airport, you fly to your client, you come back on Thursday or Friday and you do it again. And you just kind of look at life saying, this cannot be this journey, that this is what life is about. And so really it took me until 2018 to start to realize that the thing that's holding me back more than anything is myself. And just this pursuit of delving into what impact I want to have on this one life I'm given has just led me on this beautiful journey to explore and embrace entrepreneurship and kind of jump in a zone that I didn't know anyone who did what I did because everyone I knew was like me. And it's just been an incredible journey. You're right. It's roller coasters. You have to be a little crazy to play it. But for me, the idea of I can create whatever I want, and especially things in the spirit of service and helping other people is such a driving force that, has led me on the journey to where I am today.
Yeah, I love that. And that's also a really beautiful snapshot too of just kind of who you are, but also the journey of your life and ending a little bit in what you do in terms of how you create impact today. So it's a really beautiful thing, but take us back to the very beginning, right? Because I want to tell you, first of all, I identify deeply with a lot of what you discussed, right? I grew up and believed that if I ever made six figures, $100,000 a year, that I'd be set. I was going to climb the corporate ladder and take over the world, not having a fucking clue what that meant, right? And again, it was like always about what's next and what's the next level of achievement and what's this, but it was in a very like stagnant and linear, non-creative path that I never even evaluated what I wanted beyond success. Yeah. Right. And so I like you, I think we both have similar respective backgrounds, but you said you're a kid from, did you say Alabama? Is that what you said?
Montgomery, Alabama, born and raised.
I love it. Okay. So you're a kid from Alabama. So what was your experience as a kid in Alabama, and what were the primary driving factors that ingrained that belief system that led you for so much in the beginning of your life?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. What was interesting about my upbringing in Alabama is I grew up in a Jewish household in Alabama, and both my sisters are bright redheads. So if being Jewish didn't make you stand out enough, you have two siblings that are redheads when no one else is a redhead in that city, and then to have come from a family that's pretty short. Most of my family is between 5 foot and 5'6", and I'm 5'11", almost 6 feet. And so, and then on top of that, when you live in Alabama, everyone wants to be a football player. Everyone loves the University of Alabama. And I was born in my feet toed in. And so I tried to play sports as a kid and would only trip on my feet. And so there were just all these things that kind of woke me up in a way of saying there's something different about me. And I'm getting this messaging again and again as a kid. And I think one of the blessings of it is, one, when you represent a faith and you're the token Jew in your class. Like I never asked for this, but all of a sudden I became the representative of a faith for my peers. Had a wonderful upbringing. And the same thing, everyone plays sports. All of a sudden, I was not able to play sports in the same way. And so that was just this journey of failing as a kid and not recognizing at the time how much of a blessing it was to fail so often, so frequently. It's so young. But in that upbringing, like Alabama's quirky. I wouldn't trade that experience for anything in the world, but I think that it forced me to see the world through a different lens. And that was a lens that has served me in so many different ways. Growing up, my parents had one rule when it came to college. Everyone typically goes to Alabama or Auburn or one of the community colleges or goes to the military. They said you can go anywhere to college, you just can't go in state. And so when I saw two older siblings do that, I think at a young age, for me, all I knew was Alabama. All I knew what was down, the perimeter down the block for me. And to be forced into seeing the big world, my parents were like, "There's a big world out there, go see it." It was the best gift I got at 18. To like start this journey on, adulthood in life.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I want to just pick up on, because I think it's extremely relevant, and what you talked about is unique to you and your experience, but I think the identification of elements are something that a lot of people will experience in their own right. And what that means is that, look, you were often the only one in every room for a long time. Yeah. Right? I mean, my situation, you don't know much about my story, but again, I had my arm torn from my body. I'm the only one in every room I walk into still today, right, that has had a limb severed and reattached. But what does that often do, right? It can feed us in two different ways. It can not only allow us to see and learn through all the beautiful ways that you experience, but what I can also acknowledge and tell you is that I'm pretty sure that there was times that you felt alone, that you felt like an outsider, that you felt like you weren't good enough to fit in moments. And maybe that wasn't your narrative, but I am curious, did you ever have any of those aspects where you felt like something was wrong or you didn't fit? Because a lot of people who are the only one, often it ends up as a shame and blame dynamic, right? You're speaking my language all the time. And there's so many times in life that I even tried to get peers to join me on the journey that I was on. And they're like, yes. But then I end up venturing alone. And that theme has been a theme, even embarking on. I didn't have any peers that followed the pathway I did, that jumped into the world I jumped into. I feel like even doing Spartan races, like I tried to beg people to come do it. And that was a big transformative experience for me that I went through. But even in the beast I just did in Hawaii, like people were like, "I'm going to do it with you." And when push came to shove, I still ventured alone. So the theme still exists to this day. It's just the relationship I have with it has absolutely evolved because, you can see with the nature of my business, I thrive on experiences. And, again, that was a beautiful experience that I had to have that I would have loved to have shared it, but I can't force you to go along with me. And I don't know, the older I get, the more I feel like people are watching me and watching just like living through me in a way that I'm like, you can come to, you can make a choice. And just the power of choice. It's interesting that that's the difference between, someone achieving something and not. Did they make the choice to do so? I couldn't agree with you more. I appreciate that it is speaking your language. What I found for myself is that for most of my life, I could be in rooms full of people, surrounded by people, but feel completely alone. Yeah. Right. And now I've gotten to a place where I can feel completely alone, yet I never feel lonely. Right. And it's a completely different piece, because I think that's what I'm also sensing in you is that you're recognizing that this journey of isolation and aloneness has its areas where it can impact us negatively, but there's also a lot of gifts that are wrapped in it as it relates to independence and the models that we can set and freedom. And to your point, reading rooms and anticipating people and getting a high level of emotional intelligence. What I do appreciate is that you brought it down to the level of choice. Yeah. I talk about that often. And I believe that, most times in life, we always have a minimum of two choices. even if they're both shitty ones. That's a lesson my dad taught me for years, right? And I'm a big believer that we can choose the change we want, or we can choose to change when we don't want change, right? Either way, it's a choice. And the more we can take ownership for that, the better. When did you start to realize the power of choice? And when did the dynamic of stepping into ownership through your choices really start to propel your life forward?
It's a good question. And I'm going to say this, the power of choice, I think that indirectly I've known about it. But I don't think it really truly was something I came in and brought consciousness to until this year. And I say that because this is the year that I turned 40. I turned 40 in July last month. And I don't know, I read a stat.
July what?
July 20th. Are you July?
I'm July 19th. Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah. I just turned 39. So we're right there. Yeah.
So you were right there. And here's the thing. If 78 is the average lifespan of someone in the United States, 39 truly is that midpoint of life. And so the wake up call that I had was I started this year overweight, 220s, out of shape and afraid of finding out something was wrong with me, that because of the decisions I made in the first half of my life, what are the repercussions? And the simple choice I made was asking for help, hiring the right support, and recognizing and getting loud about what I was going through. And so I have the saying that you've heard the saying, you're only as good as your weakest link. You know, if we are pretty much made up, Mark or Brian is made up of your professional career, how you make money, your personal relationships, your love, your family, your friends. And the third category is self, like how sleep, nutrition, exercise, meditation. If I treat my business world class, but I'm treating my body or my relationships only good enough, if I'm only as good as my weakest link, if I truly want to take my business to the next level, I have to bring these other factors of self. So that principle was a big breakthrough. And then the decisions that I made, the simple decision of making a choice, and then having everyone else hold me accountable for it. I've gone through this crazy physical transformation, and I could not be more excited. I was fearing 40. Now I could not be more excited about embarking on the second half of my life. So that's kind of been this journey that I've been on. And I think that the thing when I look back to say what changed, because I lost motivation after COVID to go to the gym. Now I definitely gained it back. I think the big part about it was I made a big decision. I made a choice. Yeah. So that's kind of where the consciousness of it really came from. Indirectly, I think that I've always been doing it. But this was the first year that I like this idea of, no, I can change my story. I can make a choice, and seeing it through other people. I hear them talking and they have this idea of defeat. And I'm like, you can change this narrative anytime. You just have to make a choice.
I always say that we truly can turn the page and close a chapter in any part of our life whenever we want, start writing a new one. The key is that we also have to be the ones holding the pen and not give it to anybody else any longer, right? Like, because sometimes those stories get written for us.
I can't believe you had your arm ripped off.
I know you're like, you're like, wait a minute. Well, I want to talk about that for a second.
I know. It's like nothing else matters anymore.
You know, and dude, in another venue and another time, I'm happy to go as deep as you want on that. But today's about you, my friend. Right. You know, and so, you know, here's the other side of this, right? When you're used to doing things alone, when you're used to being the only one, you also get used to believing that you're the only one who can do, and that you're the only one that actually has your own back. Right. And so a lot of what you embedded in there, and you said it very subtly, but you said not as a part of this choice that you decided to start asking for help. Yeah. I just had a client here with me for a half a day doing an intensive with me. And the key underlying theme is that he has no ability to receive, right? He's never been in a position to receive. He doesn't know what that looks like. He doesn't know how to ask for help. And this is a major problem for lots of people. Hey, by the way, me too. It was one of my biggest struggles. And I've been flexing my asking for help and receiving muscle for 3 to 4 years after I realized it was one of my biggest blind spots. Mm-hmm. I really appreciate that piece was a part of what you talked about. And for those that are watching, Mark no longer weighs 220 pounds. He's lean. He's mean. He clearly did have a level of transformation. But when did the concept of asking for help really hit you? Was it in the same moment and you realizing what's happening with your weight and your physical body? And what were the steps that you took through making that choice that started to open you to the ability to not just ask for it, but actually allow and receive it?
Yeah. So there's a concept that I want to talk about with this that is usually it's, there could be listeners that are saying, I want to make a decision, but why am I not taking action to it? Sometimes what needs to happen is some degree of an event. And I classify it as an event that happens. Turning 40 is an event for me. The death of a parent is an event. Graduation is an event. Events could be multiple things that happen, but it's something that makes you stop and reevaluate the situation that you're in. And so this idea of if you're not taking the big enough action, the question I would have is, what type of event, or is there something that may just fall on you that wakes you up in a different way to make you take different actions? And so why wasn't it when I was 38 or 37, I was able to take the same action as 39? The event was I was turning 40 and I was afraid to find out that like I hadn't gone to the doctor because during post-COVID, during COVID era, everything in the healthcare system was flipped upside down. The dentist is something I went to religiously every 6 months. I got off track on that. All these things happened, life happened. And I was about to go do blood work for this person I was working with. And I was deathly afraid of my physical, going to the dentist and the blood work. And an instant boost of confidence was getting the reports back to say, you are okay. But had I not done that because I was avoiding it, like I was just living in this state of fear. It was really crazy how much confidence that gave me, just like getting the answers. And so I think that was it. The event was I was turning 40 and we are given this one life. And to be frank, this is the chapter of life that I have not experienced a lot of death or illness or friends getting cancer. And the older I get, you start to really feel the effects of the mortality of life. And, you know, I just had this fear that I'm about to hit the second half and nothing will ever be the same. And it was this wake up call that I needed. So that to me was my big event. And that was it. You know, it's simple, but it was enough that it put me in fear.
Yeah. How did you become aware that you weren't asking for help before? Because a lot of people are blind to that.
It's because, and this was, there was a mentor of mine that he had this program that he broke down your life into like 12 categories. Okay. And he said that if you resist any of the categories, like parenting is a category, or health is a category, or your environment, or your spirituality was a category. If you find yourself resisting a category, then there's something that's like, there's something there. And I find myself pouring into business because I'm good at it. It fuels my soul, but I was doing it at the cost of personal relationships I was having and self. And finally, when you start to point the spotlight to the blind spots that you have, I think that was kind of where I had this wake up call that is like, what am I avoiding? And why am I avoiding this? And then starting to delve deeper and deeper, I'm avoiding it because I'm in fear. And so I think that's kind of where it came from. And part of it was, again, my business is doing great, but I'm ready to take the business to the next level. But there's a block there. And there's a block that I need to be able to address. And it's not a business block. It's a personal block, or it's a relationship. Like it's everything else. Yeah.
By the way, I think that like 99% of the time when people think that it's a strategic or tactical problem within their business, most of the time it's not even a business issue. I am a believer that though there are business issues that need to be resolved, most of the time the bigger blocks come from the blocks within inside the leaders that they're not conscious to.
I could not agree with it. That's so funny you say that, because literally last week, that was one of the big themes, is that this mastermind event that we did in Hawaii, he's like, we don't have business problems, we have you problems. And so people are delving deep into you think it's business, you think that tactic. No, it's not the tactic that's going to save you. You got to go down to you as the individual. There's something here that's holding you back.
It's always the case. And here's the reality. So you may not know a bunch about our world and the language that we use, but I work with people to identify and remove the trash from their past that no longer serves them, right? To transform that waste they may not even know exists inside into wealth generating activities by getting out of the way of it. Because here's the reality. It's never the strategy and tactics. Those are critically important in our world and our businesses. They are. I never minimize strategy and tactics. However, it's always the emotional triggers, behavioral patterns, and environmental conditioning that cause us to react in moments that we're unconscious to, that are actually creating those separations and disconnects in our life. So I love that you're clear on that. You're perpetuating that message, because I do believe that's a conversation that needs to be more normalized in the entrepreneur world, especially 100%. Where there's so much hustle culture and bullshit shaming that takes place to people that has nothing to do with their actual ability and only to do with external measurement, right?
Could not agree more. I could not agree more with that. So it's interesting because even like, what was the difference between growing the business from 6 to 7 figures? We did it in 1 year. But the difference between me building a 6-figure business versus a 7-figure wasn't strategy, wasn't tactics. It was mindset. It was rewiring the whole concept. Am I worthy of having a 7-figure? So now, like, as we grow to the next level, it's the same concept. I know it's not about like, we have our systems down, but the difference is how much am I investing in the self-growth, mindset, rewiring, and all that, because that's what's going to take me to the next level.
So go there with more specificity for just a minute. Because there's a lot of people who listen to this that are in that 6-figure world who want to go to 7 figures. And I agree with everything you just said, right? 100% we're talking the same language. For you, what was the internal revelation? What was the block that was preventing you from getting to 7 figures? And what was the shift that you needed to make in order to be able to step into that?
That's a great question. So part of it was finding a good mentor. And the mentor I had hired, every time I went in a state of lack, he was able to call me out for it. And so that's the power of I believe that no matter what phase you are in business, find a good mentor, find someone who understands and is willing to invest in you. And so what he did for me, one of the things he did when COVID happened, and at the beginning of COVID, I went all in on custom box agency. It was never meant to be the business. I built a business in virtual events after I left Deloitte. And you think, hey, we're all at home during COVID. This virtual event business that you've been working on for 3 years is going to take off. And then I had this other side hustle that was starting to get momentum around building these custom box experiences. And my mentor looked at me and he said, I went around and asked people who is Mark Stern. He said, 50% of them say you're the box guy. The others say you are the virtual event guy. So you're confusing people. You're 100% nothing. And that one piece of advice, I came from Deloitte where they celebrate you being the world's best generalist. They want you to be good at everything. Entrepreneurship does not celebrate you being good at everything. They want you to be known for one thing. And so the simple pivot, and I went and thought about it, it made no sense to go all in on the box experiences, but I held a vision that really fueled and excited me. And I mean, this is the challenge of going into a zone that no one's really done what you do in the capacity you do it, because now I have to educate people and get them to see my vision. But there was something that just pulled me into it. And the simple decision to go all in on it made it so easy because now 100% of my mental capacity gets to focus on these experiences that we build out for clients. So when people are focused on 50 different things, you do Facebook ads and YouTube and all these things, you don't get to spend all your mental capacity on one piece of the pie. You are splitting it across all of these. Yeah. And that simple decision was one that took me from 0 to 7 figures in a year. The other one real quick is every time I'm this is it. My business is done. Something happened. He had the ability to look at me and go, Mark, this is a 2-week problem or a 5-day problem. You can solve this in 5 days. And just having that voice that was just a voice of belief. We dealt with a big situation in which our fulfillment partner, this was before we had fulfillment services in a warehouse in-house. They were a good enough fulfillment partner. They did not want to be great or excellent or world-class. They just wanted to be good enough. We want to be world-class. And they came to us during the holiday season, the worst time of year, Q4, and said, oh, we don't want to service your boxes anymore. And I brought them about 25% of their clientele. So now this is a situation that they were what are we going to do? Because now we're going into Black Friday and Christmas. And I was this is it for my business because I don't have a fulfillment center. But thank God my mentor looked at me and he was this is a 2-week problem. You can solve this in 2 weeks because I solved it in 2 days. Brought all the inventory to Austin, Texas, where I live, and started to build the whole fulfillment capabilities that we have to the state during COVID, Q4 2020. And thank God I did that because had I not done that, it truly up-leveled my business to a new level. So, man, thank God. So much gold in your answers. I'm really appreciating it. You said one thing in there that I really want to extract though, and get your insight on as well. I had a buddy the other day who I was coaching through a moment, and he is a visionary by definition, right? You talked about this vision and we've got to perpetuate it long enough, create it long enough till people can finally start to buy into it. By the way, in what I'm doing, talking about emotions and making a lot of people lean into those internal pieces to heal, I faced that same dynamic, and it took a few years of doing it consistently before people were like, oh, gotcha. I see the importance of this now, right? And I'm still on that journey, right? Because it's a fringe topic that many people don't want to face. And I knew that going in. However, he was in this visionary, and there was something that flipped on him the other day. And I had said to him something about, hey, that's the whole point. And it's about getting people to change the conversation and go deeper. And he goes, that's the thing as a visionary, as long as we follow our heart, most won't understand it first, but then slowly and surely they all catch up. And then he said, when will everyone just trust the visionary? And this was my response. I said, I ask myself that all the time. Then I remind myself that that 99% of people can't believe in a vision that they are not capable of seeing until it's real. Yeah. That's the role of the visionary, helping them see it until they do. Trust operates off truth. Once you show enough, trust is there. So what is your vision specifically? It's bigger than just where you are today. And what are the challenges or activities that you're focused on today to get people to see the vision even before you fully arrived? Yeah. And the challenge that we face is if I'm like, we're going to build a box experience for you. No one knows what that means. No one has kind of like a preconceived notion of what a box experience is or how we're starting looking at it. They think swag box. And we joke and say swag means stuff without a goal. So like stop sending people stuff, send them what they need. And so the bigger vision for me is we have a product that is forcing businesses to get clear on what they're asking their customers to do. We have a product that shows a roadmap to get them to the finish line. Because if I can't have clarity on what that journey looks like, whether it's a acquisition journey, meaning from discovering you to buying your products and services, or a delivery journey, onboarding to getting the result of the product they bought, or a retention journey, which could be recognition or introducing the next way you serve them. Those are all different journeys that you can take. So for me, the power of what we do in giving people the tools they need to be set up for success and expedite the that transformation faster. I want our product to be synonymous like an iPhone case to an iPhone. Like an iPhone case to an iPhone. You can have an iPhone, it can work without a case, but if you have a case, it can protect it. It can extend the lifetime value of it. It can be personalized. It can be something that you can customize to you. It's an industry that no one saw it being a multi-billion-dollar industry and the impact that it would have. But it's an essential component that I would never get an iPhone without an iPhone case. I want box with business, how we start to marry physical with digital. It opens an entirely new avenue in terms of how you can show up and serve your clients. And, for me, I'm not about like, let's put another course in front of people. If data is already showing us the completion rates for courses or digital products is like 3%, how do you make a better product? Have a 3.1% completion rate. To me, this is where I fundamentally look at a system and say, it's flawed. It's not working. It's time to reimagine it because it needs to be disrupted. And the cool thing about a physical product is when you marry those two domains, it opens up a whole nother level that you just can't tap into. And the simple way of saying it is experience is seen through the senses. A digital product is only based on what you see and what you hear. So scrolling through Facebook, what you see, podcasts, what you hear, YouTube, what you see and hear. When I introduce the kinesthetic, the box, now I can introduce a higher degree of experience, touch, taste, and smell in addition to what you see and hear. I can't recreate Disney World and how they have mastered experience in activating all those senses or going to a movie theater or your favorite restaurant. But I can get close to providing you with a new opportunity. And so this is kind of the big vision is how do we make it so it's so synonymous that you just don't think about creating a product without a physical component that ties that links it to a digital experience.
I love the way you describe that on so many levels. And I actually 1000% agree with you. And we'll also sit here and tell you that in everything that you discussed, we're learning and growing every single day. So it's not an area that I feel like I've got mastered by any means, though I would tell you that there's more intention than I see in many cases with others. That said, the experience is everything, right? And so in a world where it seems like we've had, I don't know, like 2 billion coaches pop up overnight, right? And like all of a sudden experts in every single category. And to your point, all these digital products and things. Now, again, do I have a course? I do. I don't sell my course. I use my course as a guide for clients, right? It's a supportive additive piece. It's not something we market. But all that said, there's a lot of people out there talking, very few people with anything to say. So the clarity in the message has to exist, I would imagine, on the front end first. But could you give us an example or a case study or a story around, let's call it a speaker, author, coach who has digital products and how your box experience improved the experience for their clients, either in either of the 3 phases that you outlined, you can work with them in?
Yeah, I can grab one too, if that would be helpful to see.
I would love, because I want it to be tangible so that people can understand it. Because the words that you use, the strategies, the concepts, they're beautiful. But for those who don't have any concept of what this looks like, it's going to sound very abstract. I want to make sure that, to your point, the experience of this podcast allows a tangible nature for people to be like, oh, that's what Custom Box does. And that's how it's going to improve my ability to communicate, connect, and increase my outcomes for my clients.
Yeah. So just to show you, our most popular style box experience is what we call small box. Okay. The reason that we love the size of the smaller boxes is it gets into the things we save. So this is the thing I preach a lot about is what are the things we naturally save in life? And then how do we engineer intentionality as a result of it? One of the categories is books. Typically, when you read a book, you don't throw it out, you put it on a bookshelf. And so I'm like, I already know from the data that the bigger the box, the more likelihood you're going to break it down and throw it out. And if I know you say books, why don't we build boxes that are the size of books, a little bit bigger? Let's brand the spine. Let's say that this is box 1 of 4. So now I created an open loop. How do you get the other pieces? You have to keep playing the games. But boxes don't have to be small. they could be any shape that you want, but it's the most common size. And you can see here's a cradle that we did with a client, box experience with 2 workbooks. For our own selves, we have built, and this is actually what I just sent you, so you're getting something in the mail soon.
Oh, cool.
I built a box experience that just helps the simple entrepreneur lay out their customer acquisition strategy, but I wanted to do it almost in a board game capacity. And so you can see with this experience, it has a custom insert with a journal, a game board, and cards for you to lay out your customer acquisition strategy. This is a product we've not launched yet. This is our own product that we'll be launching. And so what you're going to see from a common experience. So here is Molly Mahoney. You may know Molly Mahoney. She's a wonderful person, one of my favorite entrepreneurs. She's crushing it, and she's just a good person. But this reeks her. So when you see branding, like typically it needs to echo you, and it's got to reek you. But a lot of what we look at is every box experience we're going to do is going to have some degree of a welcome note, a getting started guide. So think about when you buy a board game, like how do I navigate this experience? We constantly need to be reinforcing our products that we're putting in front of our clients, remind them why they bought it, the key benefits, introduce the tools and resources they have access to, and prepare them. What is the journey that you're about to go on?
Tell them how to use it, because often that's the missing piece. Yeah.
The cool thing about this is not only is this an onboarding piece to reinform buyer behavior, this is also a sales piece. So it can seed your universe. And this is something that a lot of my clients are like, hey, can you print up 1,000 of these? I'm speaking at this event. It frames their universe so brilliantly that this is all they need to be able to like seed the product or service. And the other piece is some degree of a game board or journey. And so for her, there's so many different ways to envision this. For her, how we did it with her is that she has a series of envelopes that as you go through her product, and you can see here are the envelopes, module 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you earn the right as you progress through the experience to break open a new envelope that has the tools you need for that module. And then as you complete it, you will receive the badge that you can start to fill out your badge dashboard. If I have something like this, I can gamify and incentivize behavior to say, if you get to part 4, we may trigger the next box of the equation. How do we make this something exciting? If you have a membership, I may say, hey, if I know that people leave the membership at month 4, I may say, oh, you get box 2 of 4 at month 4 to reactivate people and re-engage them at that critical point in time. So there's all different ways that you can design the experience. But the cool thing about it is a lot of these experiences have 30 to 50 pieces. It sounds like a lot, but when it's beautifully organized and like truly gives people everything that they need, don't make me print out stuff. If you make me print out stuff, you just put up a roadblock. All of these experiences, typically we see my happy zone is like 15 to 30 bucks for the box and everything inside it. It's not that expensive. And then I'd rather you spend the rest of the money, not on that Yeti mug, but if you hit the next milestone, maybe I'll trigger, if you're familiar with like the P90X model, like they didn't give you a shirt when you bought P90X. P90X was, or what, 2000s, Tony Horton workout using muscle confusion and just body weights. You got the t-shirt when you completed the 90-day journey. Like I'd rather create these, what we call jewels that you can earn for taking action and incentivizing behavior. I see you, I recognize you, rather than saying, thanks for buying my product. Here's a t-shirt. If you do that, it becomes stuff. I didn't earn it. I want you to earn it. I want it to mean something. So this is like, hopefully this like at least shows you a little bit. There's tons of examples. This client wanted a more like Jumanji theme for their challenge. And so we gave them this whole experience that we brought to life, their brand. But none of these clients came to us saying, here's what I want to do. We took them through our process. And this is where we have fun is like, I don't want you to have a preconceived notion, because when you get the lens of what's possible, it unlocks, anything. And boxes can be anything.
And that's why I wanted to show you just a couple of examples, not to say that this is the only thing you do or the only way to do it, but just to show some of the variety, because I think that's, I think most people learn physically first, right? They need something tangible. And that whole point of visionary, right? It's like, until they can see something, they can't necessarily wrap their mind around what it is or what it could do. On the inverse, you've got my mind spinning in a million directions. And I told you this on the live, and I have talked to my wife and business partner about it as well. And I have absolutely no doubt that we're going to be having some deeper conversations with you, because this is an area that, though we are intentional, we have lots of gaps and we don't know what we don't know. And to your point, I need all the help I can get. So I'm always asking for it. And I love your approach. And what I hear through this as well, though, is that there is a process around 2 words that I believe are critically important for us all to invest in. You are elevating people's awareness about who they are, what their brand is communicating, and what their current mechanisms are currently communicating. And you're putting a layer of intentionality into actually allowing whatever they desire, the actions that they deploy for their clients, to be in more alignment with their intent in the beginning. And so that awareness and intent, I think, is really what takes people deeper. Where did you learn that skill set and to ask good questions to give you the insights to see the bigger picture?
I think part of it is just curiosity. It's similar to you because I can see the curiosity in your eyes too. But for me, like, this is kind of why, like, one of the questions you asked me, which I really appreciated, is like, I don't like things scripted. I like the raw and authentic. Like for me, when I see someone take a stage, like step on stage, and they're not authentic and they put up a front, like I can read you like a book.
Me too.
And I think that people can read them like a book too. They just don't know how to process what they're seeing, but something feels off. And so I can't tell you how many people that are successful entrepreneurs that I just listen to them and I'm like, I don't believe you. And it's because they're not coming from a place of heart and authenticity. They're playing the game, the digital marketing game, or whatever game's in front of them. And so for me, I remember early on when I transitioned to entrepreneurship that someone told me, like, here's who I am off stage, but here's who I am on stage. And it was like these two different personas. And I'm just sitting there going, like, they're giving the room permission to create these alter egos and these different identities, which makes me like, it's too hard. It's too much, because I want you to know that when you meet me virtually in this capacity or in person, I'm going to be the same person. I'm not going to show up different. And I feel like when people do that, it reads and translates into, if I don't believe you, then I'm not going to buy your product or service. Something else that you said that I completely agree is one of your best competitive advantages as an entrepreneur is that you are you and I am me. And the reason that's important is there's a lot of people who sell similar products and services that you and I do. And when people buy your products, they're not only buying the outcome you're promising, they're buying you. And so when we think about the box experience, I want it to reek you. I want it to feel like a piece of you is going to your customers, because that's what makes your program so much more unique and something that they connect with because they want to be closer to you and what you've been able to do. And so that's kind of where it's fun, because if I feel like an experience doesn't represent the entity, when you do it right and see how they show up, it just elevates you in a really powerful way. They get so excited because they're so proud of the piece we created. And all it is a reflection of you. And that's kind of why when we work with you, we want to take you through a journey, but it's you sign off on everything. And if it doesn't reek you, you're missing an opportunity to have your people better connect with you and the movement that you created.
Yeah, Bro, you and I are so aligned on so many things. This is going to be fun to just continue to explore this relationship. I've really enjoyed the first two parts of our engagement and conversation, because I love running alongside people that get it, right? And have been there. So I really appreciate all of that. I love the focus on curiosity and wonder as well. Yeah. I do believe that curiosity and wonder are kind of one of the greatest expressions of self, but so many people don't give themselves permission to explore.
It's it.
Right. And you yet identify as somebody that's on this endless journey of exploration and exploring things, right? That also then perpetuates the curiosity. Is that something that has always been innate to you, or is that learned and developed? And again, you spoke to it a little bit, but how do you believe curiosity and wonder has become your superpower?
You know, I would love to say it's innate, but I feel like with all of this, it's developed. And part of it is, just having, it goes down to your beliefs and what do you believe in. And sometimes when I am rewired, like not wired correctly on a challenge, I'm like, why am I approaching it this way? Then it's like, what are the beliefs that you hold around this? And part of this is like, I had to hold as an entrepreneur a belief that, the business could thrive without me. If I didn't hold that belief, then the entire success of the business is on me. So anytime I'm like, why am I the only one that can do this? Man, when I rewired that belief, how the business changed, it's incredible. And so I believe that anyone can explore a mark of curiosity. It's just the lens that you have on the world around you. And I think for me, it's if you see where I have a lot of my original inspiration, it was as a child who grew up in the 80s and early 90s. Like Super Mario Brothers 3 for original Nintendo has inspired my business in so many different ways. Just like the simple element of land one is kind of like the plains and then the desert and then the water and then like the winter and everything. That was a cue of saying color represents transition, that I can bring that into my products and say, if you're in phase one, it may have a different style than phase two. That when you transition to phase three, all you need to know is that if the colors and the nature of that experience start to evolve, you are not, I can guarantee you've gone through a transformation because you're no longer in phase one, you're in phase two, or you're no longer in phase two and you're in phase three. And before you know it, you've completed this process. And so that's the power of journey, but that's taking inspiration from a regular Nintendo game from the 1980s that has influenced me. And so it's weird to see the things in my life that like I have gotten inspiration from that have come back. It's saying, can I actually introduce some of these concepts that we take for granted because you're in it, not taking a step back and looking at what they're actually doing. But then again, when I talk about rules, here's another one for you, and I'll be quick with this one. The power of setting rules. I have a framework that is the jewels, the tools, and the rules. Your customer is on a journey to a jewel. Jewel is a physical representation of the fact that you've completed this. When I do a Spartan race, by the end, they give me a medal. This is a jewel. It is without a shadow of a doubt that I completed this race if I hold this jewel. It is up to us to provide them with the tools. This is why I love the box experiences, the tools, and then to set the rules. The rules are about minimizing chaos. What's the rule for Mario Brothers 1? Go right, stay alive, touch flagpole before time runs out. Like if you go right in Mario Brothers 1, you stay alive and touch the flagpole before the time runs out, you will win the game. Those are the 3 rules for a multi-billion-dollar franchise. So the question then becomes, as a business owner, have we defined the rules for our customers to set them up for success? If you've not defined the rules, chaos pursues, and then you're just like, I don't know how you ended with this result going through my program, but okay. And that's not the thing. Like if you designed it to have a certain outcome, don't make your people guess. Make it easy. I spend all day thinking about my business, but when it comes to other thresholds, I don't want to have to think. I just want you to tell me what to do. Just show me the path. You are my trusted mentor. If you ask me to do Facebook ads, I will jump off a cliff and do whatever you tell me to do because I know nothing about Facebook ads. But with experiences, trust me, I know this process. I can guide you. Let me be your mentor. Let me make it easy for you. So it's true for all of us.
So I do believe that clarity is king. And I do believe that our ability to lead people with clarity and understanding of what we want them to walk in terms of the path, the more successful that they're going to be. Clarity does not always mean agreement. And I do think that that's also like a really important thing just for us to pay attention to as entrepreneurs. But one thing that really stuck out to me when I was reading, and you saw, like, we have a very simplistic intake form for these shows, partially because I don't want a lot of bias. And I'm not like asking you to set up and create the interview for me, but I do like to see patterns of how people communicate. Again, you and I are more deeply aligned than I think we even realize, and I love it. You said, I prefer pictures over words. And then you said, my brain is very strategic, but rather than seeing things in black and white, it's the picture. And I often talk about the difference in how we view the world from black and white and how that divides many people without agreement. Whereas often the gift is in the gray area, is what I believe. But I also believe that life is about contrast, meaning light wouldn't exist without darkness and white wouldn't exist without black. And if we don't have contrast in a picture, then it doesn't have the right composure and it's not going to feel right, very, very dynamic. I love the way you used those words, but I'd like you to explain, why do you prefer pictures over words? And what do you mean when you say, rather than seeing things in black and white, it's the picture?
Yeah, it's a great question. And part of it is just knowing me. And this could be just like the third grader in me coming to life. But words on a page, and this is something that everyone's saying, like when I was growing up, you had to read the books and whatnot. But for whatever reason, taking a book that was just black and white, I could read and then my brain started to slow down. And now it's taking me forever to read a book. And it was just something that, like, I was just raised in a society that everyone is about the black and white words on the page. And the grades you had in schools were all about that. And it just wasn't the way that my brain functioned. I joke often and say that my love language is PowerPoint. And I love PowerPoint because it is a canvas that I can create anything. And my superpower when I was at Deloitte, that I didn't realize was a superpower, was when we are working with clients to define strategy, what people struggle with is they could see the vision in their head, but they don't know how to translate it. And for me, I can't tell you how many times I've had conversations with clients, with people to say, I agree with what you're saying, but the visual you put in front of me is telling a different story. It does not map. And they struggle with it because they don't know how else to translate it. For me, the second I see like what it is you're trying to achieve, I can lay it out just visually. And I do that way because, again, a picture's worth 1,000 words. I'd rather have a team of 500 designers on my team to take complex concepts and make it just visually that you just get it. Because that's what I would be able to do for my partners at Deloitte that I worked under, is I could take what they're trying to do. If they're trying to sell another $1 million gig, I can do a 1-page visual that sold the whole story really powerfully. And so that's, to me, like, I would rather say, one day I'm on the New York Times bestseller list or Wall Street Journal bestseller, not because of a book I wrote, but because of a box experience, which means I have to hold a bigger vision and create a new category and build like this whole new opportunity that the world doesn't know about. But that's for me, it's exciting because, we are now in an era that is an AI driven era that to produce a book, I can answer a couple of questions and AI can write a book. And we're seeing previous to AI, it was billions of pieces of content. Now we're seeing that on an exponential billions and billions and tens of billions and hundreds of billions of pieces of content released every day because it's getting easier. When you start to think through the physical experience, it still is a new opportunity. It still is some way to stand out against all your other peers who are just doing AI in the traditional capacity. And this is kind of where I get to have a lot more fun because it truly is, I can't use any better words than taking something that is so old school and turning it into a new opportunity.
Yeah, I love that. We're going to be wrapping up here relatively quick because I know we're coming up on time, but I had a couple of quick questions for you that I think are going to be highly relevant to what we just discussed. Look, the picture's worth 1,000 words makes a whole lot of sense. What we also know is that only 7% of the communication that we give and receive is in the words that we use, right? 38% in the delivery, the tone, and the cadence, and 55% in the nonverbals. And so what we're also talking about is the fact that the contrast to that black and white on the page is also giving people less than 10% of what we can typically communicate and receive. Whereas a picture can immediately evoke emotions and depth and things that we're unconscious to and nonverbal expressions and how we actually consume it. So there's a lot of science to support everything you're talking about. It's not just theory and application, but most people, right, can have almost instant connection understanding. That said, right, if we only use the narratives that have been written for ourselves in our lives, we're only relying on the words and we aren't seeing the 55% of the nonverbals and the pieces that maybe we still need to address. You've been on this journey of transformation and awareness, and you clearly have done healing mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually to a degree. I'm also a big believer that there is no final destination, just constant evolution of self. So as it stands here today, right now, you just turned 40. That was your event moment, right? What are the blind spots that you're becoming aware of right now, or where are your areas of biggest block that you're currently focused on overcoming?
Yeah. Oh my God. Right now, I'm still on the health journey that I'm on. I hired a mentor whose vision for me is for me to have a six pack. It was never a belief that I held to have a six pack. Now I'm like very close to having it. So I think the health journey is still one that I've been pursuing pretty heavily because I suspended health in a big way. Relationships, having deeper relationships. I think a bigger blind spot that came forth this year, just through the communities I've been part of, is how I don't think I've surrounded myself with the right environment, the right people. And I didn't think I ever thought of that because I was just a product of those around me. But for me to grow and develop and thrive in the capacity that I need to, this was a big blind spot that I had is, am I actually surrounding myself with the right people who are growing at the right capacity, who can challenge me in the right way? Or is it more of the same? Because people tend to play it safe and I don't play a safe game. Yeah. So I think these are some of the blind spots that I'm having. So this has been a pursuit of, am I finding my people? Am I finding my tribe, my peers that are doing amazing things that I want to help their growth and they help mine? So that to me, I didn't realize how much I needed that until really this year.
That's beautiful, my friend. Yeah. Well, look, I know we're coming up on time and I'm super grateful for your vulnerability, your transparency, and your openness today. I know Activate Deck is something that you guys are getting ready to launch, and I'm going to encourage a lot of our listeners to be able to go capture and lean into your knowledge, your understanding, because I am highly confident that you can improve the experience and customer journey for any business. Just because of the questions that you ask and the way that you're showing what people's real message and impact could be through visual and sensory experiences, brother. It's beautiful. Did you have any other thoughts that you wanted to add before we wrap the show today?
No, I mean, I think if anything, just this is a game that the way I describe it to people is the more that you can niche down and start to release the mental capacity for the things that are holding you back. Like the second I let go Deloitte, I had no idea what it was that I was going to do. I just knew that when I released the mental capacity and freed up the space, I could get creative and discover what it is. And the fun thing about this journey is because I'm not split across so many different things, I get to put all my brain power to this one thing. And this was a principle in the 4-Hour Work Week where Tim Ferriss said, develop your strengths. Because at the time I was always wired to develop your weaknesses. Yeah. And the cool thing about developing your strengths is it truly sets you apart, especially if you're playing your zone of genius. And so that'd be the only thing I'd say.
Mark, thank you, my friend. I really appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Yeah. And for those of you that just watched Mark flip open his lid, man, he just dropped the bomb right there at the end. Look, we don't really know what's possible until we open ourselves to it. We never really know what can be possible until we surrender the possibility. Focusing on our strengths, but recognizing that strategy and tactics never get you there. It's always about the internal game. You are always going to be the biggest block within your business, within your life, within your relationships, within your health. However, you also are the biggest reason that you'll be able to move yourself through it as long as you make that choice. Bringing things down to that fundamental choice gives you the opportunity to create the experiences for yourself and those that you want to impact. But what is it going to require from you? To flip open your lid and scan your can.
What you can probably tell by now is that I love telling these stories, but what I love even more is the impact that's coming from them. You see, we're on a mission to impact over 1 billion lives as quickly as possible, but to do that, we need you. See, we believe that moved people move people. And so all I'm asking is if you've resonated, connected with any of the messaging, please consider commenting, sharing, leave a rating and review. Thank you so much for tuning into Flipping the Lid. And if you want more information on the show, how to become a guest, how to recommend a guest, or any of the other details, head over to flippingthelid.com. We'll see you there.